Here's something I've never said publicly before. After sitting across from over 1,000 people planning their retirement, there are things I wish every single one of them understood before it was too late to change course. Not generic advice, real harsh truths that most people only learn after the damage is already done. Some of these are about money, some aren't, but every single one of them I've watched play out with real clients, real families, and real regret. If any of these hit close to home, there's a link in the description to book a call with my team. Let's get into it. I'm going to be going over 7 truths with you, and I've saved the most exciting truth for last. Truth number 1, income projection failures. Over the 28 years I've been doing this, there are only a few things that I've witnessed which have caused people to run out of money in retirement. Spending more than what was planned for, investing too aggressively, and failure to do an income projection that tells you your odds of retiring with enough money. The solution for getting an income projection that gives you your odds of a successful retirement is called a Monte Carlo simulation. Essentially, a Monte Carlo simulation is defined as testing your retirement plan against thousands of randomized market scenarios to calculate a probability of success. Instead of assuming steady average growth, Monte Carlo simulations account for market volatility and the unpredictable sequence of investment returns during retirement. If you have a probability of success at 99% or above, in my opinion, you are in a good place to sail into retirement with confidence. Truth number 2, the healthcare cliff. Many retirees unintentionally cost themselves thousands in unnecessary health insurance costs. This typically occurs to people who are retiring before they receive Medicare at 65 who do not have health insurance provided to them from a former employer. Many people who need health insurance prior to Medicare at 65 will go on Affordable Care Act, also known as ACA insurance, or a state-sponsored version of ACA insurance, depending on the state you live in. What people don't understand is that the cost of this health insurance is generally heavily influenced by your modified adjusted gross income. People also don't understand what the term cliff entails. The cliff refers to an amount of modified adjusted gross income that you earn that immediately makes the cost of your ACA insurance go up substantially. For example, in my hometown, if you are a married 62-year-old couple who goes on ACA insurance, your cost of this insurance is around $8,426 per year if your modified adjusted gross income is $84,600. And if you go $1 over this amount, that amount per year goes to $40,265. So this literally is close to a $32,000 increase in your annual cost of ACA insurance. To prevent this from happening, you need to know what counts and, more importantly, what does not count towards modified adjusted gross income. Examples of what counts are things like wages, salary, pay, Social Security income, pension income, distributions from IRAs, any net business income you might have. Municipal bond interest, which is typically income tax-free, does count towards modified adjusted gross income as it applies to ACA insurance. Any income, dividends, and capital gains from non-qualified investments also counts. More importantly than what does count is what does not count. Qualified Roth IRA distributions do not count towards modified adjusted gross income, and applicable distributions from non-qualified investments also does not count. So if you're taking the basis out of your non-qualified investments, that does not count towards modified adjusted gross income. So if you can organize your investments correctly before you retire and use those buckets of money that don't count towards modified adjusted gross income, it can potentially help you keep you under that cliff amount while still giving you the income that you desire. Truth number 3, small changes to investments can make a big impact to your lifetime taxes. To illustrate this, I'm going to show you 2 examples. Number 1, tax cost ratio. This is the amount that a non-qualified mutual fund's annualized return is reduced by taxes from dividends and distributed capital gains. On the low end, a very low tax cost ratio would be 0.3%. On the very extreme high end, we've seen tax cost ratios of mutual funds be up to 5%. So if you have a 1% tax cost ratio, that essentially means that if your mutual fund goes up by 10% after taxes, you only make 9% because you're losing 1% to the taxes from the mutual fund. So this amount might seem kind of trivial when you think about it at first, but let's say you have a portfolio of non-qualified mutual funds, which essentially means not in an IRA, not in a Roth IRA. And let's say your current tax cost ratio is 0.8%. But let's say in a perfect world, you could reduce that tax cost ratio by making adjustments to your current funds and get that down to 0.3%. So only saving 0.5% per year. Well, when you look at this over the course of a 30-year retirement, assuming you make an 8% rate of return on your investment, the added value from making that one small change is over $1 million, $1,085,035 over a 30-year retirement. Now, another example that we see quite a bit with small changes making a massive difference to what you get to keep after taxes can be illustrated with IRAs and Roth IRAs, and this is something we call location optimization. So for this example, we're going to assume that stocks go up by 9% per year, bonds go up by 4% per year, and we're just going to run this example over a 10-year time horizon. And we're going to assume that this particular investor wants to have half of their portfolio in stocks and half of their portfolio in bonds, simply because that's what their risk tolerance dictates. And you can see on the screen that we're going to assume that this investor has $1 million in an IRA, $1 million in a Roth IRA for simplicity purposes. And they're going to put 50% of their IRA in stocks, 50% of their IRA in bonds, 50% of their Roth IRA in stocks, and 50% of their Roth IRA in bonds. And you can see through this example, both buckets make the same amount of money over 10 years because while it's sitting in those buckets, they're not paying taxes on it. So the $1 million with a 50-50 split between stocks and bonds grows to $1,923,804 for each bucket. So collectively, they have a little over $3.8 million. Now, what we're going to do in the second example is we're going to take the same investor, 1 million in an IRA, 1 million in a Roth IRA, but instead of going 50-50 with the IRA and 50-50 with the Roth IRA, they're going to put all their bonds in the IRA and they're going to put all their stocks in the Roth IRA. And you can see from this example that the IRA grows from 1 million to a little under 1.5 million, $1,480,243 because it has all of the bonds that are only earning 4% per year. But with the Roth IRA, you can see that the Roth IRA, because it has all the stocks, grows to $2,367,365. So at the end of the day, they still end up with the same total as the previous example of $3,847,608. But the big difference is they have a much larger tax-free bucket that they can take income tax-free distributions for qualified reasons over the remainder of their life. And they have a much smaller IRA bucket where when they take money out of that IRA, they're going to have to pay taxes on it. And naturally, most people would want a bucket of money that's smaller, that's fully subject to tax, and a bucket that's bigger, that's 100% income tax-free. Again, this is called location optimization. Simply by shuffling your more aggressive investments that you believe will grow more over the long term into that tax-free bucket equals more dollars in your pocket down the road. Truth number 4, psychological uncertainty. I find that many people delay retirement due to psychological concerns regarding being bored or lacking purpose and simply fear of the unknown. I find that each of these concerns is valid, but I also find that these concerns rarely materialize once people retire. In fact, by far the most common thing I hear people say post-retirement is, "I don't know how I ever found time to work." Additionally, I find that it's rare that when I ask people who are a few years into retirement if they regret retiring when they did, I rarely hear of regrets. Finally, the fear of the unknown also seems to dissipate quickly in retirement as people adjust to their newfound freedom. Now, if any of these truths are hitting close to home, that's not a bad thing. It means you're paying attention before it's too late to do something about it. There's a link in the description where you can book a call with my team. We'll talk through your specific situation and make sure you're not learning any of these the hard way. Truth number 5. Social Security mishaps. Many people botch when they take their Social Security. And I think this occurs because people read articles on when to take Social Security and they apply generic advice rather than taking their unique circumstances and applying logic. I like to think of the decision on when to take Social Security as a pendulum where there are some factors encouraging an earlier start date and others encouraging a later start date. The collective total of these factors will help you determine whether your pendulum encourages an early or a late start date. So let's take a look at the variables pendulum. I just listed a handful of common variables that might influence a later or an earlier start date. And the things encouraging taking Social Security earlier would be if you have concerns about the solvency of the Social Security trust fund running out, that encourages an earlier start date. If you have a dependent child or children, that encourages an earlier start date because you get extra money on top of your normal Social Security that goes away if you don't take it and you'll never get it back. If you are single and have a short life expectancy, that's a reason to take Social Security early. Number 4 on the variables pendulum that would encourage an earlier start date is if you think your investments will make a high rate of return. If you take your Social Security earlier, that decreases the need to take so much money out of your investments and lets them grow more. So those are a few of the common variables that would suggest that you take your Social Security earlier. Now, some of the factors that encourage delaying Social Security would be if you have active income before your full retirement age. That's a good reason to delay your Social Security because it will actually reduce your Social Security if you do take it early. If you have a long life expectancy, that's another reason to delay taking your Social Security. If you have a lot of confidence that the Social Security Trust Fund will be around and they'll continue to fund it in the full capacity that it is presently funded, that's a reason to delay. If you expect your investments to have a low investment rate of return during your retirement, it would be better to delay taking your Social Security than if you expected a high expected investment returns. And finally, if you're one of those people that are looking to do Roth conversions and you have opportunities to do Roth conversions, by delaying taking your Social Security, it frees up space so that you can be more active with those Roth conversion opportunities. Truth number 6. Estate plan problems that no one talks about. Years ago, when I started in this business, we frequently had people who had estate plans done by competent attorneys that did not work according to the plan. People had unnecessary probate, income taxes, and estate taxes. Fortunately, the solution to the problems that we witnessed were frequently preventable. To illustrate the solution, imagine you go to a qualified estate attorney and the attorney develops a sound estate plan. Within the estate plan, they create a will, a trust, along with other important estate documents. Following the completion of the estate plan, the attorney gives you a list of how to title your various assets and another list showing you how to list your beneficiaries on various investment accounts. You take this information and you do your best to get this task completed, but you fail to do this with every single asset that you own. This creates a situation where the estate plan will not work as your attorney had intended. Furthermore, 3 years down the road, as you open new accounts, close old accounts, purchase new assets, how many people remember what their attorney told them 3 years ago? What many people fail to understand is that the attorney's estate plan will only work according to the plan if you correctly title your assets and correctly leave your beneficiaries on all of the accounts as the attorney illustrated. For this reason, we recommend people do a title audit and a beneficiary audit periodically, in addition to doing a full review of their estate plan to ensure it is still relevant towards their original plans and to ensure it is still effective for any estate law changes that may have occurred. And that leads us to truth number 7, retire early reality. Many people can retire sooner than they thought possible. I believe that this is the case based on flaws with traditional retirement planning. Traditional retirement plans assume that people retire and spend more each year during retirement based on an assumed interest rate, which is frequently 3% or so. In reality, based on my personal experience, people actually tend to spend less as their age increases throughout retirement. Not only have I witnessed this hundreds of times over, the Bureau of Labor Statistics does a Consumer Expenditure Survey every year that shows spending tends to decrease as people's age increases. Additionally, the National Bureau of Economic Research has found that older retirees tend to be more financially satisfied with their financial situation than younger people. This would imply that people are spending less in their later years in retirement, not because they don't have the money, but because they are simply less active than in their younger years. So if you believe that your spending will go down as you get older and you factor this into your retirement plan, it might be the difference between retirement now versus 2 or 3 years down the road. So those are the 7 truths I wish every retiree understood sooner. Some about money, some about time, some about the people we love. None of them are easy to hear, but hearing them now is a lot better than learning them the hard way. And if there's one thread that runs through almost all of them, it's this. Most people wait longer than they need to. They stay in a job, a routine, a version of their life that no longer fits simply because no one ever showed them it was possible to leave sooner. So if you've ever wondered whether early retirement could actually work for you, I've helped hundreds of people retire before 62, and I break down exactly what works in this video right here. I'll see you there.